Thank you very much. Look, thank you for sort of staying the whole day. I think, frankly, it's been worth it. There was no stage at which I fell asleep, I have to say. I really found the selection of speakers to be stimulating, and the fact that you're here, hopefully being informed, educated and stimulated, means that the US Study Centre is fulfilling its function. I took on this job as chairman for a couple of reasons. One is I wanted to work with Mike Green again. I was one of the people that pushed Mike Green to take this job, having known him over so many years through our interactions in Australia and in Washington. And I took on the job for another reason. It's because I do believe in the Australia-US relationship. I believe in its potential. And I also believe that you have to sort of see through volatility at various times in the relationship about what are the core strengths, the fundamental values that impel the relationship. And for me, the bedrock of the relationship is actually the way Americans and Australians get on. It just is so frictionless in many ways. We don't necessarily always understand each other. We speak English, but sometimes we're speaking at each other. But one of the reasons I took on the job, as I say, is because I believe in the relationship. I was there in the Howard office 20 years ago when we put together the concept of the centre with others who had an interest in how do we objectively promote the relationship by helping people better understand the US, the drivers of what happens in the US, and how we can work together constructively. And today, the issues that you've seen discussed, the areas we've identified for priority, are all areas where we believe we can do more together with the US, but from a firm base of understanding. I have to thank you, Mike, and the team, Jared Monshine, Janine Pinto, for helping to put all this together. Our sponsors, Clayton Utes and the Department of Defence, who are here in some numbers, as I keep bumping into them in various places. Today's not the end of things. We've got a strategy simulation thing tomorrow that a few people will be involved in. But then next year is an important year for the Centre, 20th anniversary, a lot of other things happening, 250th anniversary of the US, for example, 25 years since 9/11. There's a whole series of these interrelated things. And so there's a whole series of things about to happen. And we want you to be part of that by subscribing to the work of the Centre. If I could sum up some of the themes of the day for me, what it emphasised for me is that we do have to keep, as Australians, with an eye on Australia's national interest, we have to keep doubling down on the relationship, even as we develop or further develop other relationships. And we've identified today some of the areas in which I think we can have more cooperation. I was struck by this point about narrative. I think Peter Dean and others made this point about talking more explicitly about the strategic and other benefits of doing AUKUS, because in Australia at the moment there is this debate sort of starting to percolate about there are all these other technologies coming along. Maybe some of the Pillar 1 submarine technologies are going to be obsolete. Are we being dragged into a war without our consent and all the rest of it? I think we have to keep explaining why AUKUS happened and why it has to actually be executed. The industrial piece has to be done. If a country like Australia, committing itself to something like this, cannot get it done, what does it say about our capacity to do anything big? If we're serious, we just have to get on with it. That's not to cut off debate about things like AUKUS, but if we want to sell it to the public, to keep renewing that social licence, we have to talk about the why. And certainly in my time as ambassador and later in Washington, it was very clear the Americans had an expectation that we would be, I think, more forthright in talking about the why. And of course, partly it's got caught up in the fact that we have also, as a nation, stabilised our relationship with China, which has meant that we've been sort of carefully walking this tightrope of our major trading partner and our major defence partner. But the other point I would make, just to finish off in all of this, is that we talk about areas like critical minerals and others. Don't forget critical and emerging technologies. And that's where Pillar 2 of AUKUS can be important, because that encompasses a set of advanced capabilities. And the reforms which have come because of AUKUS to ITAR, export control regulations and all the rest of it, mean there's a greater capacity for us to all work seamlessly together. And when we go to Washington, part of our argument to the US is not only that we are seeking to carry our weight through things like AUKUS, but that all these mechanisms we're creating mean that we can work more seamlessly together, and that is a model of how allies and partners more broadly can work together. The only problem with Pillar 2 is to make sure there is a bucket of money so people can see this will happen, to the point that I think General Berger made earlier. So lots to do. I hope you've been energised by all of this. I'm certainly energised by seeing all of you. So go in peace and sin no more.